Hi everyone, welcome back to Visually Hidden Selects. I'm Peter O'Brien, and today I would like to talk to you about Seven Samurai from 1954, directed by Akira Kurosawa. This film is highly regarded as one of the most influential films ever made, and its legacy stretches not only around the globe, but across time, as 2024 marks the 70th anniversary of this film. This film is based on an original story written by Kurosawa and frequent collaborators Shinobu Hashimoto and Hideo Ogoni. It was developed after two failed attempts at writing a screenplay, the first one involving nothing but epic battles, and then another film that revolved around a day in the life of a samurai warrior. The result of this writing session was a historical action drama hybrid with a lot of contemporary undertones. The themes of nobility and identity are very strong within this film, but they are disguised in this feudal era fable. These ideas are critical in terms of the story for Seven Samurai, especially being produced in a post-World War II environment and after the US occupation of Japan. The film begins with a gang of bandits pillaging the countryside in 16th century Japan. After the bandits claim their intentions on a small farming village, a group of men from the village set out to hire samurai to protect them. They travel to the nearest city with nothing to offer the warriors except 3 servings of rice a day. After witnessing a noble act by a more mature samurai, Kanbei, played by Takashi Shimura, they approach him with their offer. He takes pity on them and goes about assembling a team and strategy, ultimately winding up with 7 samurai. If this story sounds familiar, it's because it has been remade several times, most notably as the 1960 American Western The Magnificent Seven, directed by John Sturges. It was also not so notably remade as the second Pixar feature, A Bug's Life. Roger Corman also kind of took a stab at this story in 1980 with a sci-fi version called Battle Beyond the Stars. You can see the universal appeal of this story, and it all stems from the idea of good versus bad that's present in the original film. I remember seeing it on a lot of top 10 lists growing up. It has a very strong reputation in the field of cinema, but as a child, I was never really motivated to pursue it. Partially because it's 3.5 hours in black and white in Japanese. And that's just not a great selling point to a kid or a teenager. And it wasn't until I was around 18 years old that I finally sat down and watched it, and boy did I feel stupid afterwards. First of all, yes, it's 3.5 hours, but it does not feel like 3.5 hours. There's something about this movie I can't explain, but it skews time. And I attribute it to the fact that it is both visually engaging and narratively engaging pretty much from the beginning. And unless you understand Japanese, you have to read the subtitles, and so you are focused on the film from the get-go. So it's 3.5 hours, but it does not feel like 3.5 hours. This one really has an energy about it and a focus that just sucks you in, and it keeps you in the moment. This film really is the archetype for the contemporary action film. It is built out of a drama, but it is infused with these elaborate set pieces of action. I mean, the beginning first part is really when they're assembling the team and they're working out their strategy and how are they going to defend their farmers, and they're basically plotting it almost not unlike a bank heist where they bring everybody together for their special characteristics or traits, and then they set about utilizing all of those skills as a team. The second half of the film is the promise made at the very beginning of the attack by the bandits, and when the bandits show up in the second half, it's really a siege where it's just run after run as the samurai defend this village. And when you watch the film, you will see the influence of the action sequences on pretty much every film that came after it. They are gritty, they are down and dirty, literally. I mean, the camera is right in there, and they used multiple camera setups to capture the action as well, because thinking ahead, they realized we might not be able to do this more than once. So let's get a few cameras going, and that just adds to the energy in the edit as well, because it's the same thing. There's a continuity about it that then comes through and makes it more believable, rather than cutting away or cutting to coverage. The action really kind of stays in the moment and allows the cuts to happen on the action. I think that is something that this film in particular really brought to cinema. There are a lot of really great and fun and memorable scenes throughout this movie, but I think my favorite scene might be when Toshiro Mifune's character, Kikuchio, just unloads on the samurai for their position and their conceit with regard to the farmers that they are protecting. Because Kikuchio, he is a novel character. He is not actually a samurai, but he aspires to be a samurai. He is kind of tagging along on this adventure at first in the hopes that he could be accepted and recognized as a samurai. And in this scene, you find out a little piece of his history. You find out more later in the film, which is also just eye-opening. But there's one scene in particular where the samurai are not exactly happy with their farmer hosts, and Kikuchio basically reads them the riot act. And he plays both sides in his monologue, where he looks at it from both angles. And it really gives you a grand insight not only to his character, but also the situation they find themselves in and the transitional period in Japanese history. This takes place in the late 1500s, so the late 16th century, and that was really at the tail end of feudal Japan. So this film kind of gives a little bit more historical context and weight to its characters. This film doesn't have a typical protagonist-antagonist relationship. It is really a group dynamic. It is an ensemble of the seven samurai versus the bandits. And while Takashi Shimura's character Kanbai may be the leader of the samurai group, it is really Toshiro Mifune's character, Kikuchio, that just steals the show. And he is basically the wild card of the bunch. There are times when he is the comic relief, there is times when he is the antagonizer, there is times when he's the motivator, there is times when he's the champion, when he's the hero, when he's the fool. And the movie really kind of utilizes him in a number of different ways to advance the story. But I think foreign films are great for a number of reasons. First of all, you get to experience culture, you get to experience history, you get to experience language and scenery, and all of these things that you would not otherwise get to do. And you get to do it for less than the cost of a plane ticket, and a shorter duration than an airplane ride. So really, it's a great way to travel without ever actually leaving your home. So that's it for Seven Samurai. I really hope you enjoy this recommendation, and if you have seen any of the other versions of this story, it's always good to go back to the source. If you do check it out, please leave us a comment, let us know what you think, and we will be discussing it at length on the next VHS podcast, so be sure to tune in for that. Until next time, see ya!